sacred necessity. 5 Jungian reasons why awakened souls choose solitude. They are not antisocial. They are not depressed. And they are not psychologically broken. Carl Jung discovered that spiritually awakened individuals deliberately choose solitude for profound reasons that have nothing to do with avoiding people and everything to do with protecting something sacred. This isn't isolation born from emotional wound or fear. It is what Jung called conscious aloneness, a deliberate, mature choice to preserve, nurture, and develop the extraordinary inner life that awakening creates. Today, I'm revealing Jung's 5 compelling reasons why awakened souls quietly withdraw into solitude, not as an escape from reality, but as a necessity for psychological survival and maturation. Understanding these reasons will fully explain why your growing need for alone time isn't a weakness, but a profound wisdom. Not a regression, but a radical progression. Here is what Jung discovered that nobody talks about. Awakening doesn't make you more socially compliant. It makes solitude essential for psychological survival. The inner world becomes so rich, so alive, and so demanding of meticulous attention that external interaction, even positive interaction, often becomes exhausting, distracting interference. Jung called this the introversion of consciousness. And it is not optional. It is what naturally happens when the inner experience becomes more vivid, more real, and more purposeful than the outer world. Reason 1. Solitude is where the real conversation happens. The first reason reveals why company becomes so profoundly draining. Jung discovered that awakened individuals choose solitude because they have formally begun what he called the dialogue with the self, capital S. This is an inner conversation so profound, so essential, and so comprehensive that external, conscious conversations feel like necessary, but often superficial interruptions. This is not a simple internal monologue or mere abstract thinking. It is an actual, two-way dialogue between the conscious ego and the deeper, wiser, more comprehensive presence that Jung termed the self. This isn't fantasy. It's what Jung called autonomous inner wisdom that provides essential guidance, radical insight, carried for years. Suddenly, effortlessly, answer themselves. Problems that seemed utterly unsolvable, reveal their necessary solutions fully formed. Combating force, creative inspirations emerge with such clarity and force that they demand immediate, solitary attention. All of this requires absolute solitude. The self does not compete with external voices. It will not shout to be heard. What makes this so significant is that this inner dialogue becomes your primary source of guidance. Jung observed that awakened individuals stop seeking external advice because the self provides superior, tailored wisdom. They stop needing external validation because the self offers a deeper, unshakable confirmation. They stop requiring outside direction because the inner guidance is exponentially clearer. Jung identified what he called the silence requirement. The self communicates in subtle frequencies that only silence reveals. The self is always communicating, but external noise, social chatter, media, the anxiety of others, drowns out its subtle voice. Like trying to hear a whisper in a crowded room, the self's guidance is lost in social interaction. This creates the solitude hunger, an almost physical, non-negotiable need for alone time, not born from antisocial tendencies, but from needing to maintain this crucial inner dialogue. Every moment spent in company is a moment away from this essential conversation. Every external interaction delays this crucial communion.
Awakened individuals choose solitude because that's where the real, essential work happens. Reason 2. Others' unconscious material becomes unbearable. Jung discovered a mechanism that explains why awakened individuals find social interaction so profoundly exhausting. They have become involuntary receivers of what he called unconscious transmission. In company, they don't just interact with people's polished, conscious presentation. They absorb their raw, unprocessed, unconscious material. Shadows, projections, repressed emotions, unspoken thoughts. All of it floods into the awakened person's now permeable awareness. Solitude becomes the only necessary escape from this relentless,
conversational layers. In conversations, you hear not just the spoken words, but the unconscious, often contradictory motivations behind them. Emotional overload. In gatherings, you feel the intense emotional undercurrents that everyone else successfully ignores. Physical projections. You experience others' unconscious projections, for example, their unacknowledged self-hatred, as almost physical sensations or energy drain. The unconscious material others carry unconsciously, you are forced to receive consciously. What makes this so exhausting is that you literally can't turn it off. Jung observed that awakened individuals often feel like psychic sponges, involuntarily absorbing the chaos in their environment. A simple trip to the grocery store becomes overwhelming from all the collective anxiety. A family gathering feels like drowning in decades of unprocessed historical emotion. Even being near one profoundly unconscious person can be depleting for days. This creates what Jung called social exhaustion syndrome, not simple tiredness from interaction, but acute depletion from processing others' unconscious content. Awakened individuals often need days of solitude to recover from hours of social contact. They are not antisocial. They are protecting themselves from unconscious overload. Jung observed that awakened individuals develop strategic solitude, carefully managing social contact to prevent overwhelm. They must limit group interactions, avoid large crowds, and choose one-on-one meetings with meticulous care. Solitude becomes a necessary recovery chamber from the burden of receiving others' psychological waste. Reason 3. The inner world becomes more vivid than the outer. Jung's third insight reveals a profound shift in the perception of reality itself. Awakened individuals choose solitude because their inner world has become what he called hyper-real, more vivid, meaningful, purposeful, and alive than the external physical reality. The landscapes of consciousness, the movements of the psyche, the dance of archetypes, these become so intensely fascinating that the outer world's interactions feel flat, random, or dull by comparison. Solitude is choosing the greater reality over the lesser. Here is the cognitive activation Jung discovered. In our journeys, meditation becomes a journey through actual psychological landscapes, not just quiet sitting. Dreams as primacy. Dreams feel more urgent and significant than waking external events. Conversations with inner figures provide more genuine nourishment than many external relationships. What makes this so compelling is the quality of meaning in the inner world. Jung observed that while external life often feels chaotic or meaningless, the inner world operates through what he called meaningful order. Every dream has purpose. Every inner event connects to a vast necessary pattern. This meaningful richness makes the outer world's randomness feel impoverished and thin. This creates the inward pull, an almost gravitational attraction to the inner world. Awakened individuals are naturally drawn inward, not through discipline, but through pure, captivating fascination. External demands become interruptions to this primary fascination.
Reason 4. Integration only happens alone. Jung discovered that awakened individuals require solitude because what he called the integration work, the critical process of psychological digestion, can only happen in absolute aloneness. The processing of shadow material, the synthesis of opposites, the digestion of profound insights. These essential psychological processes require complete privacy, not because they are shameful, but because they are so delicate that any external presence, even a silent, supportive one, instantly disrupts them. Here is the integration process. Awakening brings constant, raw revelations that need processing. You see through a lifelong illusion. It needs psychological digestion. You recognize a projection. It needs to be carefully withdrawn. You encounter a shadow aspect. It needs to be safely embraced and metabolized. This integration work is continuous and can only happen in what Jung called psychological privacy, complete aloneness with your vulnerable process. Jung wrote, "Integration requires the full, unwavering attention of consciousness turned inward. Any external engagement, no matter how minimal, diverts the energy needed for this delicate work. The process is fundamentally individual. Jung observed that no one can integrate for you, with you.
Deep structural transformation. The presence of others keeps you locked in your persona, preventing the radical vulnerability required for real change. Only in solitude can you be naked enough psychologically for genuine transformation. Reason 5. Solitude is where you remember who you are. Jung's final insight about why awakened individuals choose solitude is the most profound. It is only in complete aloneness that you can experience what he called the self without other. In any relationship, you exist in relation. In company, you are subconsciously defined by comparison and role. But in solitude, you discover who you are, when there is no one to perform for, no one to define yourself against, and no one to seek approval from. This is not loneliness, it is what Jung called pure being. Here is the deepest identity challenge. Most people only know themselves through others' reflections. They define themselves through roles, parent, professional, seeker, and understand themselves through external comparisons. But awakening reveals these as what Jung called relational constructions. Not who you truly are, but who you appear to be in relation to others. Jung wrote, "Only in absolute solitude does the individual encounter themselves without the mirror of the other. This encounter with the self as it is, not as it appears to others, is the essential prerequisite for individuation. This self-remembering manifests powerfully. Henrik nature emerges. Without anyone to maintain an image for, your authentic nature quietly emerges. Escalate revealed. Without roles to play, your core essence reveals itself. Email's irreducible self. You discover what Jung called the irreducible self, who you are when all relational identity is stripped away. What makes this solitude essential is that social interaction constantly pulls you back into relational identity. Even being physically alone while in a relationship isn't true solitude, because you are still psychologically oriented toward the other. Only in complete necessary aloneness can you discover the self that exists beyond all relation. The self discovered in solitude is not antisocial. It is what Jung called pre-social, existing before and beneath all social construction. It's not against relationship, but prior to it. This independent found for immersion in vivid inner worlds, for essential integration work, and for remembering who they truly are. Jung wrote, "Solitude for the awakened is not a withdrawal from life, but a deeper entry into it. They go alone not to avoid, but to become who they truly are." These 5 reasons reveal solitude not as a preference, but as a requirement. Jung believed that the need for solitude increases with consciousness. The more awake you become, the more time alone you need, not from pathology, but from what he called the mathematics of consciousness. Expanded awareness requires expanded processing time. Greater sensitivity needs greater recovery. Deeper insight demands deeper integration. Stop feeling guilty about needing solitude. It is a psychological necessity. Stop trying to explain your need for alone time. Others won't understand until they begin their own awakening. Stop seeing solitude as isolation. Recognize it as the profound, essential communion with your deepest self. If you are quietly choosing solitude, if you are withdrawing not from wound, but from wisdom, you are honoring what Jung called the sacred requirement of consciousness. Your solitude isn't selfish, but profoundly necessary. Not antisocial, but deeply social. At the level of the collective psyche,